I was wondering if you guys are hiring right now. I was thinking about applying for a job. I was thinking about applying for a job here. I'm currently facing 88 felonies. For detention of classified information. Do you all take people that have been found liable for sexual assault, trying to overturn the 2020 election, falsifying business records? I was wondering if that was going to be a problem.
You're working with diamonds and jewelry.
They're gonna do a background check.
Yeah.
So that's the only.
So probably not.
Yeah.
So did you guys hire people that have been found liable for sexual assault, or?
We run a phone background.
Okay.
No, we don't.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Donald Trump has been charged with 88 felonies and found liable for sexual assault. If Trump is too big of a liability to get a job at your local mall, he is too big of a liability to be president of the United States. Republican Accountability PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Right, Andrea, let's be clear here. You know, for years we have talked about David Pecker and his role in this, and yet we have not heard from him publicly discuss that August of 2015 meeting with Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. We have not had him on the record, and the question is, would there come a day that David Pecker would testify? And as we speak, that is what is currently happening. And David Pecker, if I may, I just want to read a couple very specific quotes here, because he is explaining that Trump Tower meeting that is at the heart of this case here against Donald Trump. David Pecker says that he told Michael Cohen and Donald Trump, quote, "I said that I would also be the eyes and ears. I would notify Michael Cohen and he would be able to kill these stories." The prosecutor from the district attorney's office asked, quote, "How, if at all, did Mr. Trump react to your suggestion that you continue to do that?" Quote, Pecker says, "He was pleased." Currently, there is evidence being brought forward before this jury that includes those National Enquirer headlines, the pro-Trump headlines, as well as the attacks on the likes of the Clintons and other Republican primary opponents like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz throughout the Republican primary process. Those are currently being entered into evidence before the jury right now. And the question from the prosecutor was, did each of these headlines correspond to stories that you ran in National Enquirer? Yes, Pecker responded. Was this part of an arrangement you struck at the Trump Tower meeting in 2015? Pecker says yes. Negative stories about Trump's opponents was a part of the deal, right? Pecker responds yes. So for the first time in the public record here, we are getting David Pecker corroborating what Michael Cohen for years has now articulated about that meeting. To note, Hope Hicks could very well be a witness. Pecker has testified that Hope Hicks was in and out of this meeting, so we could very well get even more corroborating testimony as it pertains to that exact meeting in Trump Tower in August of 2015. Right. There is currently deliberation over Steve Bannon's name into this conversation that the defense for Donald Trump is asserting and objecting to this line of questioning of David Pecker around Steve Bannon and his relationship with Pecker, because Pecker has now testified that in October of 2016 that Donald Trump introduced Steve Bannon to David Pecker. Now, of course, in October of 2016 was at the heart, while all of the deliberations over the Stormy Daniels payment were ongoing, but also the fact that Steve Bannon was working as the chief campaign strategist, CEO of the campaign by that point. And so we are currently listening to a line of questioning where the defense is saying, look, Steve Bannon was never brought forward as a co-conspirator in this, but the prosecution is making the case that, yes, well, they are not charging Steve Bannon, and the questions of whether he would actually be brought forward a witness, I think, are still outstanding, that they believe that he fills in the gaps about some of the David Pecker testimony and the extent to which it was a scheme or a conspiracy that even extended beyond just David Pecker, Michael Cohen, and Donald Trump, but others were involved as an extension of the Trump campaign and Donald Trump personally to subvert and make sure that articles through the National Enquirer were put out into the sphere that were beneficial to him and damaging to others, and as it specifically pertains to Steve Bannon, damaging to the Clintons. But all of this conversation is happening in real time, Andrea.
Domestic correspondent Phil Mattingly. And Paula, ostensibly, this was about whether or not Trump violated the gag order, but it was actually deeply revealing and potentially problematic for Trump's attorney, who just really put himself on bad footing with the judge on really what is just day 2 of this trial.
It was a disaster for the defense. I know in speaking with them, they went in with a very well thought out plan. Now, it wasn't necessarily going to win on the merits, but they were going to argue about what they see as the unconstitutional nature of this gag order, the unilateral aspect of Michael Cohen being able to attack Trump, but Trump can't attack him back. And this just went completely off the rails because while they wanted to do macro, big picture, the judge wanted to go post by post through each of these alleged violations of the gag order that in many instances are indefensible. I mean, you have the judge here suggesting that Blanche had already undermined his credibility with the court, as you said, on day 2, and even at one point suggesting that Trump should take the stand and say under oath that he didn't mean to violate this gag order. I mean, I knew this wasn't going to go well legally for the team, even though they had some meritorious arguments. But this was much worse than I could have expected.
Yeah, I mean, he was basically daring Trump to say, okay, well, get on this stand under oath and say that your reposts are not essentially what we can all see that they are. And Phil, you know what's notable?
We are literally monitoring everything going on this Tuesday morning. I just want to touch on something very quickly. Trump is in court. They're currently discussing the gag order because clearly he's broken that. But let me share with you a clip from what's happening outside the court. There are... Where are they? Where are the maggots? They appear to have, well, found something better to do with their time. And Trump in court, what's going on is clearly now beginning to reflect in the latest polls.
The idea that the legal troubles that Trump is facing have somehow helped him, but that's not something that I've necessarily seen in the recent data. So this is Biden versus Trump margin nationally. Look, in January and February, you had a pretty clear Trump lead, right? +5, +4, +5, and you had the Marist poll that had Biden up by 1, but within the margin of error. A Trump lead. Look at what's happened in April, though. All of these polls, all of them have shifted to be more friendly to Biden. +4, +3, +1, but it was +4 Trump back in January and February, and +5 to now +2. So something is cooking, Kate. Something is cooking in the polls, and whatever is cooking seems to be helping Joe Biden. And one of the things that might be cooking is the fact that the attention has turned from the Republican primary now to Trump's legal problems, because that's really been the main thing that's been in the news.
Something is cooking. It sounds nefarious when it comes from Harry Ent. Any sign, though, that you're seeing of what it has been suggested, Donald Trump has said it, that this attention, his legal troubles are helping him.
Yeah, so let's take a look here. This is the Biden versus Trump margin by attention paid to Trump's legal cases. This is from a recent New York Times Siena College poll. If you're putting some attention, some or a lot of attention, if you're looking at the Trump trials, look at this. Biden leads among these voters by 8 points. If you're paying little to no attention, Trump leads among these voters by 18 points. So the more people are focusing in on the Trump cases, they're actually more likely to vote for Joe Biden than for Donald Trump. The less attention that you're paying, the more likely you are to vote for Donald Trump. So the fact is, if you're paying more attention, you're more likely to vote for Joe Biden. Less attention, more likely to vote for Donald Trump. So I don't see the case that Trump is making here.
And also,
he's nervous.
What'd you do?
On Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, Donald Trump entered a Manhattan courtroom and pled not guilty to 34 crimes.
Russia.
I'm going to.
Fucking movie star. You're a fucking movie star.
Said tick, tick, tick.
That jury was picked so fast. 95% Democrats. The area is mostly all Democrat. You think of it as just a purely Democrat area. It's a very unfair situation, that I can tell you.
what do you think of this as an example?
I think it's a total violation of the gag order. He's going after the juror. He's making things up. It's not true. It's 95% Democrats. I don't know where he is coming up with that number. That just can't possibly be true. There's nothing in the record that would support that. The idea that it's not fair, he's basically going after the jury and the jury system and trying to undermine the viability and the authority of the court. I mean, he is going right after it in violation of that order.